Well, talking about disasters there around Achill, there were a few. Wasburn, of course, that I mentioned before. He was a Donegal man and he lived in Pullach and he had a red beard. And we were fishing back in Kim there, myself, Sean Kilban, Francie Mack, and somebody else. We were on the salmon fishing. Sean Kilban didn't have a boat at that time, but we stayed in Scott's hut. That's a two family. There was Sweeney, there was Scott, there was Big Mangan, there was Boyd, and there was Charlie Tom. So there was 7 crews in Kim fishing sharks. So anyway, Francie was very superstitious. If he was going to Purcheen there to take out his car, if he met a hare or a red-haired woman, that was it. It was bad luck. So he went back. That was it. But at night time, we'd sleep up there in the hut upstairs. And at that time, you know, you had to cover your head with a blanket because it was full of rats. The place was nothing but rats. So anyway, Francie would be up in the middle of the night and he'd look out on the strand in Kim. And then he'd tell us in the morning. He says, I saw him last night. Who, Francie? You know who? The man with the red beard. Osborne. That was Francie, but he was a great fisherman, you know, things like that. So he was the one that took the boat out, and he had four film crew on there, and he got two Osborne, and he got too close to the Osachty. The Osachty is the Irish name for the daisies. It's almost 3 miles off the strand in Kim. And superstition, Francie, of course, you know, he says he saw him there last night. And he was very superstitious still. Now a hare or a rabbit crossed his path, that was it, goodbye, you don't go fishing that day. But anyway, that was one of the disasters there. And then the one that happened there up in Cloughmore there, I don't have, what I heard from my mother was the fact that at that time people were leaving for Scotland and they would leave from Westport. Nowadays they leave on the train and go to Dublin and things like that. So there was not a ship, it wasn't a ship, it was a freighter, a bigger ship than what they had there. And they would have a boat, a sailboat, leaving from Cloughmore. It was known as a hooker. And a sailboat would take the people from Cloughmore and from Achill and from Corran and put them on the hooker and take them up to Westport and put them on board that ship there in Westport. It wasn't a ship, as I say, it was a freighter. And then the people, when they went up there on one of those hookers there, they were so excited to see all of this ship that they all went to one side. Now the hooker is a sailboat. There's no engine or nothing in it. So they all went to one side and the hooker capsized. And a lot of the people went in and drowned. Now, according to legend, what my mother says was that my grandfather Patrick, apparently he could swim. And he rescued this woman from Corran. And eventually she got married. So, other than that, in Kildownet, as you go up there through Cloughmore there, there's a monument there with all of the people that drowned there, and there's English names in there too. Yeah. So that was a disaster there. So then there's a legend there, I don't know if you call it legend or what, but I forget, but it was a prophecy that says the first train from Achill would carry dead people, and so would the last one too. Well, the first train from Achill, from Westport, there was a railroad line from Westport all the way into Achill Sound. It carried the people there that got drowned there in Westport. And that went on for years, and if you drive through Upper Achill there and Kildownet Cemetery there, you will see the names of those people there. Now that went on for years then. So the next disaster following that was then the Bothy in Scotland. Kirkintullach was the name of the place. And the bothy was where the potato pickers, I was there myself for a couple of years, would house in there. And whatever happened, there's a lot of controversy as to what happened. Somebody says this guy, the local, was liked this girl and she rejected him, and he went and he locked the doors from the outside. And they were all inside. And then the fire erupted and they couldn't get out. So that was the second one. That was a Kirkintullach disaster. And there was a lot of people from Achill at that time. There was one man there, Mangan there he lost 3 sons, 18, 17 and 16 years old. So there's a monument there, I think it's in Slievemore. So that was the last train. They come into Westport there and they said that was the last train that went to Achill. So the first and the last train was a prophecy. The first train would carry dead people. The last train would carry dead people also. So that was 2 of the disasters there that I know of. The other one was my good friend Sean Kilban there, who I fished with for many, many years. And he went out at night. We used to poach salmon at that time. You know, you put out a net, a bradog they call it, a thief. A bradog is a thief. So you put out a net, myself and my father did it many a time. And you string it out there and you go out either late at night or early in the morning and pick out the salmon out of that. Now, you can't do that anymore. But anyway, Sean had a bradog out there at the point of Dewega. And whatever happened, he went out at night, but we don't know. Nobody kept a watch. But anyway, the boat hit a rock there, and the 3 of them down. He had two guys with him. They were only 18 and 19 years old, John McGady and Kilcoyne, Patrick Kilcoyne. So that was the end of Sean Kilban. I had worked with him for many, many years. Himself and his brother-in-law Bradley, Anthony Bradley. So that was 1, 2, 3 disasters that I knew of there in Achill at that time.
How about the daisies?
The daisies, yeah, well, the daisies, I just told you, it was Osborne that was out there. He had found a boat washed ashore in Duach. It was a rescue boat from a ship. But it wasn't made of wood, it was made of aluminum or things like that, or metal. So he converted that and put an engine into it. And he was the first one that ever started to fish for the sharks. He couldn't believe all those big sharks coming into Kem Bay and things like that. So he rigged that up anyway with a harpoon. And he would steer up on the shark, spear the shark, tie the rope onto his boat, and take off. Well, of course, the shark hit for the deep. And then he couldn't kill the shark, so he would have to cut the rope. So he was the first one that tried to kill the sharks. After that, then, they found out different ways to do it. Sweeney then was the main man there, and they didn't know how to kill those sharks because they were valuable there at that time, because of the oil from the sharks. So Sweeney went to Belgium, and he bought a submarine net, and he set it out in the bay there in Kim. And sure enough, the shark went in, but the shark tangled in it so much that it was disaster after that. They couldn't mend it. So then they come up with an idea of making their own nets. So they did that. But Sweeney was the main man there and things like that. And then they killed, I don't know, sharks, my God almighty. If you go back to Kim and you look at the plaque on there, I think there was a couple of thousand sharks killed there at that time. But other than that, that was it. There was nothing else. It was, apart from that, it was like, with Sean Kilban, we were lobster fisher. And then he bought the boat, I told you, up in Donegal. And then we were lobster fishing on the boat and things like that. And we'd be back in Kim early in the morning. And there were 3 certain points on there that you were sure if you got them in the morning, they were very good for lobsters and crayfish. So, okay, we would try and get back there early in the morning. So, anyway, we were back there and we met up with those 2 guys they were from Annach. They were the fishermen from Annach, the Glimmadors. Jack Welsh and Michael McGinty. And they would row. There was no such thing as an outboard engine at that time. If you had a boat, okay, fine. If you had a curragh, you rowed. Everything rowed. So anyway, Michael was a great storyteller. And he told us one time they were usually fishing in Annach, but they would go around the point of Runacora and come back into Achill Head. So they fished in Achill Head. And then they would move into Kim. So I remember them coming into Kim, and they had some little bit of food left, and he had this cake there that was hard as a rock, and he went up to the river and soaked it in the river, and that was the bread. And that night they would sleep underneath the curragh. They would turn the curragh over and sleep underneath the curragh. So he was telling us there at one time there, then they would leave in the morning. Now in the meantime then, the Frenchman come in with his boat. And according to the rule of sea there, you cannot deny anybody that has problems with their boat. So the Frenchman would maintain he had a boat. So he would anchor there all day long. But then at night you would hear the engine put, and he would head out all the way back. So everybody knew he was fishing pots. So anyway, Michael was telling me one time there, they were back there near Achill Head. And they had fished their own pots. And he said, we were sitting there and he was smoking his pipe. And the wind was just blowing the curragh down gently down towards the thing. And there was a seagull there, you know, and the seagull wouldn't move. So all of a sudden they come down there. They grabbed the goddamn seagull. It was a decoy. Underneath the seagull was a rope there. And here had strung all the pots for the Frenchman. And the Frenchman knew exactly where the seagull was. So Michael says anyway, they went and they got several pots and they cut the ropes off them and they took them in the curragh and they took them around Achill Head into Bonown and they sunk them down there in the cove. They went back again for the second one and then the Frenchman come on them and he saw them. And right at the end of Achill Head, there's a split in the rock. Here is a rock here, and right inside there's a split, and they call it the Guy. And Michael says they went into the Guy. And the Frenchman was outside with a shotgun, trying to get him shoot them. And they were stuck there, and they had to wait for him to leave at night. And then they took off. So what a road they had, you know, with the thing. So Michael, anyway, he wound up living or staying in Slievemore Hotel. He says he always wear a fisherman's gansey. And the only time that he ever did wore a tie was the day he got married. But he had some stories to tell, you know. So that was one, but he was one of the Glimmadors when he did the Scotch House in Annach.
All right.
But other than that, that is it.
All right.